If you're one of the many who quickly noticed and took offense to collectivist politicians and their cartoonish media fluffers scrambling to redefine recession so it won't be associated with the insane, aggressive political decisions that started before Biden took office and which he, the Fed, and politicians nationwide made even worse, well, get this. Imagine being a person who teaches or has taught economics and deals with it every day. Then imagine seeing Facebook flag posts as false, as they claim, simply because you discuss the most fundamental basic economics terminology. Hi everyone, I'm Gardner Goldsmith for MRC-TV. Here's the story. It's kind of like watching Bill Watterson's comics character, Calvin, constantly redefine the rules for his Calvin ball game to the bemusement of his tiger pal, Hobbs. It's also akin to watching Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock. In this episode, he was called Spocko, as they made up a card game called Fizbin on Star Trek.
The name of the game is called, Fizbin.
From frightened-looking, doe-eyed Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen flat out denying on Meet the Press the truth that the technical definition of recession is 2 straight quarters of negative GDP.
I mean, if the technical definition is 2 quarters of contraction, you're saying that's not a recession?
That's not the
No?
That's not the technical definition.
A truth that, of all people, Nancy Pelosi actually stated in 2008 to White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, echoing the same Yellen-esque canard.
How is that not redefining recession?
Because that's not the definition.
To NBC's MSNBC senior business analyst and hostess Stephanie Ruhle, claiming that we're in an economic recovery.
How do you change the way people think? Because we are in an economic recovery.
To economic fabulist Paul Krugman, telling slack-jawed Brian Stelter on CNN that not only is the U.S. not in a recession, but that the enemies of Joe Biden are engaging in a dastardly plot to use the verboten term as a way to besmirch Biden's lily-white economic performance.
None of the usual criteria that real experts use says that we're in a recession right now. And what does matter? The state of the economy is what it is. Jobs are abundant, although maybe the job market is weakening. Inflation is high, though maybe inflation is coming down. What does it matter whether you use the R word or not?
It's all like seeing a sports player constantly move the goalposts to his advantage. In fact, it's more like seeing a thief claim that he didn't steal from you, but instead that he gave you something. And have no doubt, you have been robbed. You've been robbed of buying power from an immoral government central bank nexus that's forced on you its fiat currency, then created trillions through the decades, topped by a titanic $20.354 trillion between January of 2020 and November of last year alone. You've been robbed of employment opportunities and business growth due to unconstitutional lockdowns. You've been robbed of opportunities to get new inventions, new products and services, all because the elites, as they like to see themselves, the elitists like Yellen, Biden, Krugman, and their media friends think that government spending is glorious and that your economic decisions should be directed, compelled, and steered by the state. And when it backfires, as it of course inevitably does, and the inflated money supply sees prices rise even as lockdowns and regulations cut supplies of everything we want, from baby formula to fertilizer, they have the unvarnished gall to simply deny reality. And now we learn that, oh, what a shock! Facebook and Instagram have been flagging as false information the actual economic truth about the word recession and about the Biden regime's cozy place in the midst of a recession. As Robbie Sove writes for Reason, Meta's third-party fact-checkers have flagged as false information posts on Instagram and Facebook accusing the Biden administration of changing the definition of a recession in order to deny that the U.S. economy has entered one. This is yet another reminder that the project of purportedly independent fact-checking on social media is a highly partisan one, in which legitimately debatable opinions are passed off as objective truth. And he offers more context. Quote, last week, the White House published an online article disputing the standard definition of an economic recession, i.e., 2 consecutive fiscal quarters in which GDP growth was negative. And what did the Bidenistas say? Both official determinations of recessions and economists' assessment of economic activity are based on a holistic look at the data, including the labor market, consumer and business spending, industrial production, and incomes, wrote the White House. Based on these data, it is unlikely that the decline in GDP in the first quarter of this year, even if followed by another GDP decline in the second quarter, indicates a recession. In other words, you economists out there, you go ahead and measure economics the real way if you want to. But we're going to pretend things are different so that the politically deadly term recession doesn't enter the U.S. vernacular. Zip it, zip it. In a Humpty Dumpty world where men can pretend to be women and beat them at prominent sporting competitions, where people can adopt plural pronouns, and even where words like pandemic and vaccine can be molded and shaped to fit political ends, is it at all surprising that the party in political power and its media power friends should wax Orwellian over their preferred, completely changeable, undefined so-called definition of recession to fit their needs? Indeed, it's not surprising at all. In fact, this is something leftist politicians and their media pals already did on the economic front during Barack Obama's slippery reign. Even as quarter after quarter of negative GDP piled up following the crash of early 2008, I and other free market economists were calling it like it was, a depression. Yet, despite the fact that U.S. GDP did not return to pre-2008 levels until December of 2011, the pop media and its go-to jawbreakers, including Mr. Krugman, insisted at the time that it was an economic downturn and would have nothing to do with real, factual economic terminology. And now, Meta is part of that cabal. Actually, it's more than Meta. As Bobby Sove reports, quote, the fact checker is PolitiFact, a fact-checking website run by the Poynter Institute. PolitiFact is an official third-party fact-checking apparatus for Meta, the company that owns Facebook and Instagram. In other words, they create a circuit, a feedback loop, pumping up the number of times people see PolitiFact's redefinition of recession, even as PolitiFact itself provides it to Meta. Quote, this means that PolitiFact is not like any ordinary website that offers a critique of a political narrative. PolitiFact's critiques are enforced by social media platforms. And as Sove, in this instance, PolitiFact has rated as false the claim that the White House is now trying to protect Joe Biden by changing the definition of the word recession. Really? One could debate that claim, but to outright call it false is simply comical. Heck, as Wise Wolf Gold and Silver reported on Twitter, even the comical crew at Wikipedia changed the definition of recession 22 times between July 28th and July 29th until the Wiki Lords locked it on the new spin that helps Biden and his gang. It's crazy. The whole sordid affair really is a lot like Calvin and Hobbes with the Calvin Ball comic. It's like Lucy pulling the football away from Charlie Brown every time she promises to let him kick the thing. At times like this, those of us who take great care to deal honestly with students and readers and listeners and viewers, we can become frustrated and we can get angry about this. And we can wonder why we bother to try to do this work. We've watched with increasing bewilderment as people like Krugman and Yellen just bend words to make them mean anything they want, some of them getting our tax money to do it. But we fight against it because we believe in telling the truth, not in tricks and not in kicks. We know something that evidently those people don't, or if they do know it, they don't care about it. We know that we're not supposed to bear false witness and that telling the truth is its own reward. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. I hope that you are not too frustrated and that perhaps we can exercise our frustrations together here. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Rumble where they don't censor us, I'll see you in the comments section at both sites. If you're watching on Rumble, please hit that plus sign because that helps push us up in the algorithms. And of course on YouTube, please like and subscribe on all of them. You can find us on MRCTV.org. And when you go there, go to the MRC Store, MRCTV.org, MRC Store. And you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And I am on Gab at Gardner Goldsmith and on Twitter at Gard Goldsmith. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. For MRC TV, I'm Gardner Goldsmith.